Why exactly do Hell Cannon crews have Unbreakable? We may never know. But this this video rather, is not about the Hell Cannon as a unit, but rather the unit here protecting them, Chosen with Halberds. I recently talked about Chosen with Great Weapons, and a long time ago I talked about Shielded Chosen, so it's time I finish up the trio talking about the Halberd variant, currently protecting the Soul of Damnation here from melee threats, but unfortunately for Wei here, who's playing the Warriors of Chaos up against Ryder Rohan. Both of these guys have actually sent me a bunch of replays recently. Ryder Rohan also a patron of the channel, so a big thanks to him for his support. And yeah, the Hell Cannon does get destroyed here. The crew survives, of course, but the Chosen are like, oh, well, I guess we're just going to fight now in melee. So Chosen with Halberds here, you wouldn't think to necessarily take them against the High Elves. Usually, at least I wouldn't, given that High Elves aren't really a monster faction per se, although they kind of are in a way. Definitely relying on their flying monsters, especially in this matchup. Kolek Sun Eater for some more anti-large AP. We got a few Chaos Warriors with great weapons. Planning on highlighting them soon. Probably the best mid-tier great weapon unit in the game, in my opinion. Sorcerer, Lord of Fire. We've got some Marauders here. Some Horsemen, of course. Pretty standard stuff for the Warriors of Chaos. Some Hounds lurking in the back there. For Ryder Rohan's High Elves here, he's got a couple Bolt Throwers. Techless up on his Bird. His Demon Pigeon. Phoenix Guard. We've got some Silver Helmets with shields. One unit of White Lions. And some Spearmen. No Pure Main Company, which I almost called them Free Pure Main Company. Could you imagine, though, like High Elves with pistols and swords? That'd be actually very cool. I probably like High Elves then. Anyway. Yeah, there's more Hounds hidden there in the back. Right now, just kind of taking a slow approach. The Chosen with Halberds are actually hanging back completely. And a few of you guys mentioned recently in a video that you thought it was really dumb that player was using the single shot against infantry, which, you know, it requires a brain to think about when that might actually be an appropriate situation. And if you look at the Bolt Throwers, this is not really a video about them, but we'll talk about this another time. Against low model, high armor infantry specifically, that's high value, it's better to just kill the models outright with the bolts. And I think like the Reaper Bolt Thrower, Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower shooting at like a unit of Chosen is a great example of something that you would probably want to use the single shot on, just because it actually kills models, whereas the scatter shot will not kill models quickly. And with these elite units, it's important to take down their stopping power as quick as you can by, again, killing models. Anyway, going to have a Fiery Convocation here, and a Burning Head, so all the Fiery Wind spells just burning down the line here. Wei's actually going to pull Ryder Rohan Spearman into that, so Techless doing some horrendous friendly fire damage there. Nice play by Wei. Still pretty interesting, though. The Phoenix Guard are so far managing to largely avoid the engagements with the Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons, which is really nice. These Great Weapon Warriors will trade very cost-effectively with these Phoenix Guard, but this one is getting peppered from the back by these Marauder Horsemen. The physical resistance definitely helps, and this is kind of an interesting one because we get to compare Phoenix Guard versus Chosen, not necessarily directly, although they may fight later, in sort of a battle where we can see them both in action. And Kolek's having a really hard time here. Despite his, strength and buffs and everything, he is just getting consistently whittled down by charges from Techless. Of course, he can't really stand and fight on the Phoenix Guard either. But you can see here, the Warriors with Great Weapons, they do get a little bit of a weird engagement against these White Lions, but they'll do okay. Nice net, also triggers Kindle Flame, so Star Crusher active. Cascading Fire Cloak also active, up to 70 melee defense, 850 weapon strength, basically. And I do want to highlight this here for a moment, that Kolek gets absolutely destroyed. Now, granted, he did throw an Enfeebling Foe, Ryder Rohan here, but with that massive power spike, with that massive weapon damage power spike, he didn't unfortunately get a single hit against Techless. Techless's melee defense saving him there, which if we were to do the math, I think with the bonus versus large, even with the Enfeebling Foe, like, Kolek has a pretty good hit chance against Techless. So a little bit of lucky RNG for Ryder Rohan there, not going to lie. But that's how the game goes sometimes, especially with single entity combat, with those brief power spikes. If you get screwed by RNG while those power spikes are going on, it can be really, really bad. As it is, though, battle's still pretty even. Kolek's been routed and is likely to get actually killed here. Techless throwing a regrowth on himself. Put him back up to strength. The Phoenix Guard are still holding for the time being. Regrowth probably would have been nice on these Phoenix Guard too. especially these ones here. 65 models still means they have a lot of potential healing, like, left. That would be a good candidate for a regrowth there. Try and save as many models as you can. Finally, in the late game, these horsemen come in, are able to compromise the Eagle Claw bolt throwers here. The great weapons having cleaned up. The Chosen are finally filtering in this late game engagement, having not been lit up too much by the bolt throwers. They're able to get in here without having lost anything at all, really. Finishing off some Silver Helms, now getting kind of a rear attack here on these Phoenix Guard, who have no choice but to fight the Chaos Warriors' great weapons here. And the Great Weapon Warriors are losing just because they're outnumbered and kind of were pretty damaged to begin with. Another Fiery Convocation gonna go down here. The Chosen and the others will beat a hasty retreat. Again, try and pull Rider of Rohan's units kind of into the area of effect. This time, not quite so much. They're really kind of a no man's land there in between as the units kind of disengage. But terror starts to kick in, and the issue, one of the big issues with Chosen, although they do have very good leadership, they are not immune to psychology. It's hard to terror out them, but in this type of a situation is exactly where you're in danger, where they're kind of outnumbered. Likely they would be able to grind through and actually kill a lot of these troops, especially with the support of this Sorcerer Lord. Rider of Rohan's going to kind of peel Teclis out. Obviously doesn't want to sit and fight on top of the Chosen Halberds there if he can help it. So just terrifying away whatever other units out in the periphery. Maybe trying to like clean up these Hounds and save some of these other units that are a little tattered here. Like we've got some more Silver Helms over there. Unbreakable Hell Cannon crew is coming in though, having just sat the battle out for the time being. As Teclis tries to goon this Fire Sorcerer here. Fire Sorcerer can actually punch back okay. Teclis is just a beast though. Pretty good weapon strength, honestly, on that Phoenix. Another enfeebling fall on these Chosen. Even with that though, 32 melee defense, 12 melee attack. Just because their stats are so ridiculously high. And as I talked about in my other Chosen videos, I guess I haven't really talked directly about these guys too much, but what you see is what you get with Chosen. As I mentioned in my video about the Great Weapons and the Shields both, you should definitely go watch those if you haven't. The Shield one is pretty old, but it still all holds up more or less. In fact, they even got a little bit of a buff since then. But yeah, the Halberd Chosen, if you need to fight monsters or elite cavalry, these guys are your guys. I mean, they just have ridiculously good stats. Like I said with the other Chosen, they don't really have any special abilities. They do have charge defense, given that they have Halberds. They have, you know, one extra ability over the other variants of Chosen. I guess they don't have a missile block chance, so that kind of cancels out with the shields, right? But 56 melee defense, actually only 36 attack, which isn't a ton at the end of the day. Fighting infantry, they do kind of struggle in that they, you know, they won't die quickly, but their attack isn't amazing. 26 bonus versus large, though, is absolutely insane. They will shred large units like nothing else. Unfortunately, Warriors of Chaos don't really have a lot of melee attack buffs, which is kind of strange to me, you know, given that they are such a melee-focused faction. They really don't have any melee attack buffs. Yeah, they don't have any, in fact. The best you can do is try and debuff your opponent's melee defense. Even then, you have, what, one spell? Enfeebling Foe only, I think. The only spell that lowers melee defense for opponents. So, in that way, Chosen will struggle versus other elite halberds that have access to those attack buffs. Like High Elves here, for example, have a few. You know, we've got Barona's Time Warp, the Dragon Lance, a few others. Or no, it's the Horn of whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Imric's Horn. Imric's Doot. And then, yeah, anyway. At this point here, Teclis is going to come in for a big old rear charge, and yeah, it could potentially be an issue if these units start to terror route here. Right now, though, these Phoenix Guard are not feeling great. But once the terror route starts to kind of get contagious here, you can see those two warriors route and then actually shatter. Teclis comes in here. If he gets some good hits on the Sorcerer Lord too, routes him off, gets rid of that leadership buff, that could potentially be pretty decisive here. But it may have already happened. I believe there's a big terror route here somewhere where the Hell Cannon crew was basically the only thing that didn't terror out. I might have actually missed it already while I was talking about Chosen. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. We'll see. Spoiler alert. Might have already happened. I think maybe it did, or no? Oh, yeah, I think this is where it happens. Yep, right here. You can see the Sorcerer Lord gets terrified. The Hounds get terrified here. The Great Weapons are also going to be terrified very briefly. You see there, the Chosen get terrified, and that is a big weakness of them. Keep in mind, though, this is the first time they've been terrified throughout the entire match. So in a situation like this, it's definitely bad to not have the immunopsychology. You can get it from Archaon's AoE as well, which I would say Archaon's pretty solid in this matchup. But look at this! The Unbreakable Hell Cannon crew. They survived long enough for the Chosen to rally. And now the Chosen come back, and now other units start to come back. We've got these Hounds coming back from route here. Another enfeebling foe on the Chosen as they fight Teclis, but, you know, Teclis, as per tournament rules, which I think these guys, I don't know if they're really abiding by necessarily, but can't really cycle charge here, right? He just kind of has to stand and fight, and you see how way past the paths, paths, the Halberds, like, kind of gives them an order to move past Teclis, and then kind of try and get him in a surround. That's a pretty good move, just so they all are in base contact, quote-unquote, with him, right? If you think about in tabletop terms, if you're in base contact, you can actually do the attack animations, right? So you want as many models in contact as possible. Phoenix Guard do come back briefly, just get eaten up there. Teclis just staying focused on the Sorcerer Lord, which is, or not the Sorcerer Lord, rather. He basically is going to be a Sorcerer Lord after this, probably. But the Hounds also coming back and having enough leadership to just get in here, get a little bit of poison, get Teclis stuck in up against a few Halberd models, and there's an unlucky Phoenix Guard in here somehow as well. He's very confused and sad about his life, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah, the Chosen with Halberds, finally they get a chance to just sit on Teclis for a minute and just tear him to absolute pieces. You can see he's got 1200 HP, and that is... Even with Potion of Troy, his damage resistance, also keep that in mind, up 44% damage resistance plus the physical resistance, so he is just about maxing out in terms of damage mitigation there, and still taking very significant damage. There's still 2 Soul of Damnation crew alive as well, so the Sorcerer shatters there. Does survive, but eventually... Will Terror win the day? In fact, no. It's a little bit too much. The Unbreakable Hell Cannon crew finally does not even die in the end. Wow, one Chaos Dawi Snaggletooth with like a little bit of HP left manages to help hold that leadership together. And man, if anyone ever asks you, I guess I asked in the beginning, just show them this. Why Hell Cannon crews are unbreakable? Just show them this. The Chosen with Halberds, though, 104 kills. 3,000 damage value. A lot of that is inflated because Teclis is healing himself. But I guess just killing Teclis alone, I think he is something like 3,000 value on his bird. So, yeah, very impressive stuff. Like I said, this is a matchup personally where I wouldn't think to bring the Chaos Halberds, or the Chosen with Halberds, rather. I would more think to bring them against, say, like Tomb Kings, Lizardmen, those factions that you sort of expect to bring... you know, big armored monsters. High Elves, though, I mean, they do have some upper tier monsters like Teclis or a Star Dragon that are extremely scary in a lot of ways, and honestly, you don't have a great air force to battle them in that way, so the best you can do is to try and create a strong ground force. Chosen with Halberds are absolutely that to help specifically counter those monsters, so nicely done there. Really close game, I'm going to be honest. It kind of came down to the wire there. And I do think Ryder Rohan, had he done a few things differently, could have potentially brought out the victory against Wei, like focusing the Chosen with the bolt throwers. Like I said in the beginning, some of you aren't able to kind of think on the higher level that you might use the single shot against infantry, and it would actually be a better decision in some scenarios. This is one scenario where using the single shot on those Chosen, you could have thinned out their models on the approach a little bit, and it might have turned out differently in the endgame scenario. It's hard to say. A lot of RNG going on there too, but... yeah, fun stuff. Let's go ahead and just finish up the discussion about Chosen. They kind of, the Halberds obviously fit into that elite Halberd sort of niche, and we didn't really compare them too much directly in the battle to the High Elves, Phoenix Guard, which are another pretty good elite Halberd. Personally, I think Blackguard are in some ways a little bit better than Phoenix Guard, so we'll put them in here as well. But yeah, Warriors with Chaos. The Chosen with Halberds are the most Halberds, just like the Chosen with Great Weapons are the most Great Weapons, right? Like, in terms of base cost, I guess Phoenix Guard are, what, same base cost? Yeah, so in terms of stats, they should be pretty comparable, right? And the Phoenix Guard do have slightly better attack. With Martial Mastery, they have much better melee attack, and defense is about on par. Yeah, the Halberds, Chosen Halberds have even better melee defense once you factor in the Martial Mastery. And Martial Mastery is nice in some ways, but it is a little bit of a nerf because oftentimes in the scenarios where you need the Halberds most, which is in a late game fight against monsters or cavalry, especially, they're not going to have that Martial Mastery when they need it most, really, right? So it should sort of be seen as like a mid-game nerf to your unit, not really a thing that's desirable. So in that way, the weapon damage difference, too, is substantial. 10 extra weapon damage, bonus versus large here, 20, and bonus versus large here, 26. So, I mean, on top of the difference in weapon strength already, that extra bonus versus large just really stacks that up, and the lack of melee attack against the targets they're designed to fight, which is large targets, that lack of melee attack's not going to matter so much because of the difference in bonus versus large, right? And not to mention they have way more HP. They do have less models, but way more HP, and thus more HP per model can sustain something like a Spirit Leech, or again, the Scatter Shot Bolt Throwers. The individual shots don't really do enough damage to warrant. I don't know if I can really highlight this here. It's kind of weird to see, but the base damage of these projectiles, yeah, 16 projectiles, you can see they really don't do that much damage per on the multi-shot, and 11 bonus versus infantry. Like with those elite models, it's much better to just because of the lack of AP there. I mean, 8 AP per shot plus the 11 bonus versus infantry is probably again about 8 AP as well. I mean, 16 AP is really pretty minor. You're gonna have to hit them with multiple projectiles. Something with as much health as Chosen has, it's just better to just chunk them one shot, right? Because if you look here, a single shot of this does 120 armor piercing, and I would need to do the math here for their model count. They do have maybe slightly more HP than that, maybe about that in terms of HP per model. It's pretty close, but again, you have a lot more likelihood of just one-shotting the models with this single shot here. So anyway, that's kind of a discussion for another day. But anyway, getting back to Blackguards. Blackguards are 100 points cheaper, which is a benefit to them. They also have immune to psychology, which is a huge benefit to them. I mean, I say huge. It's not completely game-breaking. Like I said, you can get immune to psychology from Archaon. There's, their leadership is good enough that you're not super likely to get terror-routed anyway, but it can be a factor, as we saw there. And Blackguards having immune to psychology baseline, same thing. Phoenix Guard, again, not immune to psychology baseline. They can get it from Alariel, but that requires Alariel being alive and present. Blackguard just have it baseline. Not to mention, Murderous Prowess is actually a buff, whereas Martial Prowess is kind of a nerf, a mid-game nerf. This is a mid-game buff, right? Where you just get a massive power spike, and the leadership in particular and melee attack is quite nice on them. They have a similar weapon strength profile to Chosen, a little bit higher than, 24 bonus versus large, so it's more comparable than the Phoenix Guard, certainly. They're going to dish out more pain, and because of those two factors, the immune to psychology and kind of the weapon damage, and I guess 3 factors with the Murderous Prowess, Blackguards, in my mind, are still the best elite halberds in the game. But Chosen are definitely up there. They come in a close second for sure. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.